Okay, so in the last segment I was talking about micro expressions and using them to help us to detect whether somebody's being honest or not. What about formal attempts to detect lies and fakery? Polygraphs are about 70% accurate. People will try and tell you that their lie detecting capabilities are greater than that. I know there are some FBI polygraphers who will claim 95% accuracy. But scientific evidence shows that the polygraph is only about 70% accurate. Here's how they work. You can see the guy has a blood pressure cuff around his upper arm. One assumption is that when you're lying, your sympathetic nervous system will kick in. And so that should raise your blood pressure whenever you try to tell a lie. He's got bands around his chest because those are going to detect his breathing rate and the shallowness of his breathing. Again, if the sympathetic nervous system has kicked in because you're lying, then you'll breathe more quickly and more shallowly. And then he's got little bands around his fingers. That's conducting. That's measuring skin conductance, which is another way of saying whether his palms are sweating. And then one of those straps around his chest is also picking up his heart rate. Pretty much what we're looking for is any sign that his sympathetic nervous system is kicking in because he's nervous about being caught in his lie. Let me finish this up though. Okay, so first off, we're not sure that people who lie will have those sympathetic nervous system responses. There are people who lie and they believe their lie, and so they're not going to have any visible changes. There are people who are, again, like sociopaths, who don't get nervous when telling a falsehood. They don't. It doesn't make them upset. It's just like saying anything else would be for them. So the lie detector test isn't going to work very well for them. And then there's the person who is not telling a lie and is just really anxious about being in this circumstance. And they may have increases in their heart rate and stuff like that that might be interpreted as lying when in fact they're telling the truth. When we say that a polygraph is 70% accurate, what that means is that 30% of the time an innocent person is being accused or a guilty person is being released or not accused. Right? That's not very good. If you had 100 people working in your office and one of the employees stole a computer, so one of you is literally the criminal and the other 99 of you are not, and nobody's confessing, nobody's saying anything, so the management decides to bring in a polygrapher and we're going to figure out who stole this computer. So all 100 of you have to take the polygraph. Statistically, 30% of you, 30 of you, will be accused. Hopefully among the accused will be the actual criminal, but that's not even a guarantee. The criminal might have gotten off. The polygraph might not have picked up his deception. So 30 people out of 100 are likely to be accused based on the performance on the polygraph because they get nervous. People's heart rates go up. The person who's lying might purposely increase his blood pressure and heart rate and stuff like that when he's answering the normal questions, so that when he does lie, the machine doesn't pick up any changes in his heart rate or respiration. It's easy to trick it as a good liar, and it's easy to be accused as an honest person. So polygraphs are not legally admissible in court anymore, and they're illegal to use in workplace settings, forcing the employees to take it. Now, what can we rely on for trying to determine if somebody's lying to us? Well, a lot of times when a person's trying to lie and be believed, they'll blink less often than they normally do. Now, this is really only a useful measure if you know how much this person normally blinks. So if this is a person who you know well, and you know basically what they normally look like, and they're telling you something and you notice this person is really just not blinking while they're talking to me, that may be a sign that they're not telling the truth. Lip licking, any kind of like grooming behavior, like picking your clothing, can be a sign of nervousness and deception. Clamping your mouth shut, in like rolling your lips in so that it's just that straight line across, can be a sign that the person's like almost unconsciously not wanting to open their mouth and let the truth out. So it's kind of a body language interpretation. And then seriously, touching their nose can be an indicator that they're lying. They call this the Pinocchio effect because it's like all of a sudden their nose starts to itch. Why is my nose suddenly itching? Is it growing because I'm telling a lie? I don't know. So touching your nose actually literally is any time touching your face at any point during, and of course this is compared to baseline. So you're going to be best at detecting lies in people who you know best, who you've seen their behavior across lots of different situations, things like that. There are some signs in your brain that you're lying. Now, we are nowhere near being able to use brain scans as lie detectors, but in experiments where we ask participants to take something out of the desk drawer and then tell us they didn't do it, and we scan their brains while they're telling us that they didn't do it, you can see parts of their brain light up in this PET scan that you don't see in a person who's telling the truth. So maybe one day we'll be able to tell the brain of a liar versus the brain of a truth teller, but we can't use it objectively yet. We have to know whether you're telling the truth and then compare it, and yeah, it's all very controlled. Okay, gender and emotional expression and detection. I already kind of alluded a little bit to gender differences, but what we find is that women tend to be more emotionally expressive. Now, everybody goes right to crying as the emotion that women express, but they are also more prone to smiling. Women are much more, it's much easier to make them smile. It's easier to make them cry. So yeah, but women tend to frown more readily. They tend to do, like, express their emotions much more clearly. They're much better at detecting emotions in other people. One theory on why women are better with both of these comes from, the fact that women over millennia have been the caretakers of babies who they can't speak yet. And so the mom has to figure out from body posture, facial expression, stuff like that, what emotion the baby might be experiencing or what mental state they're experiencing. It might be hunger, it might be frustration, it might, different kinds of things. And that also women need to convey those emotions back to the baby in a way that the baby will understand, even if the baby hasn't got language yet. So mom does big exaggerated smiles. Mom makes a big exaggerated frown or frustration face to teach the baby. And so women may just be a little bit better at those tasks because of their experience with the nonverbal members of our species. When a woman is experiencing an emotion and an observer is asked to explain why she's experiencing that emotion, observers, male and female alike, observers are more likely to say that a woman is feeling that emotion because she's that kind of person. Well, she's just a happy person. That's why she's smiling so much. Well, you know what? She must just be just sort of a depressed person, and that's why she's frowning. They're much more likely to blame her disposition. That's how she is. Whereas for men, they're much more likely to say, well, he must have just done a really difficult task, and that's why he's looking frustrated. Or he must have just heard a funny joke, and that's why he's smiling. Like something in the environment made him behave that way or experience that emotion. Something about her is what's making her experience that emotion. Okay, now this is a fun one. First off, is this picture a picture of a male or a female? So we've taken away a lot of the normal cues of masculinity and femininity, like hairstyle and things like that. Now we're left with just basically face and a neutral shirt. Is that a male or a female? Now we get to this picture, and it's a lot less ambiguous. When the face is experiencing a pleasant emotion, people are more likely to think that it's a feminine face, that it's more likely to be female. The one on the left, in my opinion, maybe I have some kind of jaded bias, but his chin and things like that made me think he looked male from the first. But he definitely looks more male when he's angry or serious. I don't know if he's angry or serious in the one on the right. Definitely to me looks more male. And one theory is that we expect men to look angry more than we expect them to look happy. Smiles tend to be seen as feminine. Straight faces, being serious, are seen as more masculine. One theory on why smiles may be seen as more feminine is that smiles can be used interpersonally as an act of submission. If you look at other species as well as humans, The person who's less dominant in the scenario is more likely to smile. And in most scenarios, the female is less dominant in any circumstance. And so one theory is that women have evolved a tendency to smile more readily than males have. Um, I don't know if that's true. I smile a lot. I don't know if it's my extroversion or it's my gender, but I smile a lot. Um, I've noticed that my students, my young students who, I call you guys young, I apologize, people who are under 25, um, men are smiling more than they used to. And so that's kind of an interesting gender change that I've noticed over the past, 20 years of teaching. Um, Men are smiling more readily. So, but maybe that's just because I'm seeing young men, and maybe as they get older, they'll start doing more serious faces. I know I'm doing more serious faces as I age. I know that. A lot less stuff to smile about, right? Just kidding. How about the effect of our culture? It turns out that these 6 emotions, sorry, I got Canadian there for a second, emotions that are being expressed in these pictures are really easy to detect and figure out what these people are experiencing. Top left, obviously, right? She's happy. Bottom middle, obviously angry, right? The bottom left definitely looks sad, right? The ones towards the right are a little bit more difficult because they kind of are a mix, but top middle is surprise, top right is fear, and bottom right is disgust. Disgust is really obvious because you pull up your nose and get those horizontal wrinkles at the top of the nose. Fear and sadness and anger all have the eyebrows pulling together in the middle. The difference between fear and anger is the eyebrows go up in the middle. Anger, they go down in the middle. Fear, they just pull towards each other in the middle. So we have these little subtle components, but the thing is, all around the world, these 6 emotions are detectable from just a snapshot like this. So that kind of implies a lot of these emotions must be really biologically based because they're present everywhere. Emotion detection and context cues. All right, so here we have that guy making that face while holding that gross thing, right? I won't even describe what that is if you're not looking at your screen. Now we have the exact same facial expression. They've changed his hands and put tears on his face, right? That exact same facial expression could be detected as disgust or could be sadness, depending on the context. How about now? Moved his hand again, same exact facial expression, but now we've moved his hand and it looks like a different emotion. Now he looks angry. So context is really important in helping us to figure out what emotion that person is expressing with their facial expressions and body language. For those of you who were relying on me to put up a label, there's our labels. But yeah, his face looks the same. It's just a matter of the context, right? All right. That's good enough on emotion, and we will come back in the next segment. I think our next chapter is stress and coping. So we'll come back with that next, if I can pronounce it. Okay, wrong thing. There we go.